Welcome to Colourful, a podcast where we talk about race, privilege, and progress in South Africa and soon to be the world. You might notice that I am in studio by myself today. I'm flying solo, as it were, because Bestie missed her flight this morning coming into Cape Town. And so here we are, you and me, and I am really, I know, right? So that's so on brand, though.
I was going to say, is that like a regular occurrence, or
if we don't leave ourselves in the wrong airport, we leave our bags. So, so yes, this is very normal. And so I want to welcome you today to the studio. A sort of a recent friend, an incredible entrepreneur, a philanthropist, a woman who loves women. Rachel Kolisi, I'm so excited to welcome you to the Colourful Studio today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
very
being
happy
here.
to be here. Yeah, it's
Yay.
going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, I am very much hoping so. So I mean, you and I have been swapping stories this morning about how our days started. And I thought I want to share with you how mine started. So I woke up this morning and had to get my kids ready for school. I've got 2 adopted children, which is not relevant to the story right now, but it will be later on. So I thought I'd mention it now. Anyway, so I'm busy getting them ready for school. And I think I told my daughter to put on her school shoes conservatively 18 times, right? Anyway, so she's carrying her shoes to the car because she didn't put them on at home the 18 times I asked her to. And we get to school and they hop out of the car, the 2 of them, and they walk in through the gates. And then I look down at the passenger side where she was sitting, and there's 1 shoe, not 2 shoes, and not no shoes, but 1 shoe. So I'm thinking, did she walk in with 1 shoe, or did she walk in with no shoes? And I'm also thinking, how am I going to juggle getting back to school to give her the shoes? Because if I don't, I'm not a very good mom. And we don't want to be a bad mom because, yeah, exactly, we're going to get there. And then I'm like, but also, what went through my child's brain to walk into school without the shoes or with just 1 shoe on? So
is that on brand as well? Or?
It's pretty on brand. We're a pretty chaotic family. So how did your day start today, Rach?
My day started actually pretty well. I started a new routine recently of waking the kids up with classical music, and it sounds a little strange, but I recently did a book launch with a guy named Richard Sutton. He's written a book called Shift Happens, and he's got some amazing tools in there that I really want to kind of investigate a little bit more, try a little bit more, and I think that they will be very helpful tools for my kids for life one day. Well, even today. And so I've started this classical music morning start, right? And so I open up the curtains because natural light is also really good first thing in the morning. Open up the curtains, open up the door to the room, and put on some classical music. Everyone got up pretty swiftly. Everyone was pretty prepared for school. And I did school drop, which went pretty well as well. Like yesterday, absolute nightmare. And then I went quickly. I've decided that doing a triathlon is a great idea. And so I needed to get a ride in this week. I've done my swim. I needed to do a ride, and I'm doing my run tomorrow and another run on Sunday. But needed to get a ride. So I rode and firstly started off with my bike. The wheel was not staying on my bike, which is a bit of a problem. And then as soon as I got to the top of the glen, I realized my back tire is flat and I did not have a pump with me. So
is that when you messaged me to say that you were running a bit late?
Going to be a little bit late. And so I try to ride down as carefully as possible to make sure that I got back in one piece and I could actually make the podcast without any extra marks on my face today.
I love it. I love this classical music. Is that on brand or not brand?
It's new on brand. Probably not normally. Kizzy at some point changed it to "It's Friday again." So that was the situation this morning. That was changed very quickly because they don't understand. They're very shocked by this whole classical music situation, but I found it very, very calming and soothing. So anyway, we're trying and see how it goes.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so in front of you are some nail polishes. We, as you know, we love to paint one hand of nails red.
Yes.
The question we get is why?
Yeah.
Well, I think like red is it's a resilient color. It's bold. It's courageous. It's like you can't look away. And so that's what we do at Colourful. We have the kinds of conversations that are so necessary that you can't look away from. And it's bold and it's vulnerable. And I know that's since we're talking about being on brand, I know that's also very on brand for you.
Absolutely.
So Rachel, you know what is coming next. We have 3 nail polishes in front of you on this table. We like to ask our guests, whichever gender you identify with, to paint one hand of nails red.
Great.
The question we get is why red? I'm kind of like, why not? But also because it's a kind of resilient, bold, courageous color. Like you can't look away from red.
Stunning, yeah.
And that's the kind of conversations that we love to have on Colourful. The kinds of conversations that might feel uncomfortable, that might feel really vulnerable, which I know is important to you, but that really connect us.
Yeah.
And so
Awesome.
I would like to invite you to pick one of those 3. I would also go with that one because that one I think might be finished. Right. So it would be awkward.
I also feel like this one is pink.
It is.
Not red, so whoever chooses your red nail polishes needs a bit of a...
Well,
okay, and I'm painting my nails now. Okay, great.
You're going to paint your nails now?
Because I haven't painted my nails in super long.
And you don't know whether I have nail polish remover at the end of this interview for you or not. So you might just walk through the day with one hand.
Which I don't hate. Kizzy somehow is convinced that red is my favorite color.
Oh, really?
I don't really know what my favorite color is, but Kizzy, like, anytime anyone asks or she brings home like Mother's Day cards and stuff, like favorite color, red. I'm like, I don't know where girl gets this, but okay.
That's so cute.
We'll
when I was young, I used to say my mom was 30. I had no idea what age she was, and she was 30 for like 10 years.
Your mom was like, thank you so much.
Exactly. So Rach, while you paint that hand of nails, one of the things that I would love to talk to you about today, since it also just seems to keep coming up already, is around motherhood and how we raise our children. And before I go there, I wanted to ask you, thinking back to when your kids were younger, and I know your children spanned a whole bunch of...
Can I just say, you're very lucky that I'm a female and I can multitask and listen to your beautiful questions and do this at the same time.
Yeah, you see, that's why you're here. Because in the past, I've had to paint some people's nails for them, like literally get up and do that. So you are right. You are not wrong.
Sorry.
So I was thinking to ask you... Thinking back to when your kids were younger, and I know that your children are there's quite a lot of age. What do we call it?
Diversity.
Like diversity. That's good. Beautiful. So you might be thinking to different types of ages, but I would love to know what 1 or 2 books or movies were the types of stories that you love to share with your children that spoke to things like identity and inclusion and the kinds of stories that were meaningful.
Yeah, I think what's been really important for me with my kids and when it comes to like anything that they consume, like books, movies, music, everything, I try and always be very conscious. Firstly, as much as possible, include South African and local artists and curators and creators. And so a lot of South African books, and there's been some really beautiful children's books that have come out over the last couple of years that I think really have a solid representation of South Africa and South Africans. And there's one specifically, Wonder the Brave, and she does a beautiful book about kids' hair and like the different environments where you can get your hair done. And I actually recently went to my daughter's school for a book reading thing that they invited some parents to do. And I read Wonder the Brave. I just can't for the life of me think of the author's name now. And then from a movie perspective, because the kids are all very different ages, sometimes it is a little bit tricky finding something that's appropriate for everybody. Yeah. But I love movies like Hidden Figures. There was one recently that we watched with Emma Stone, maybe Maid or Maids or something. And that was like a really good movie. But, also all of the cartoons and stuff. I love conversation with my kid. I love like engaging in things that cause like a conversation afterward. Listen, it's not great, but
I've just been watching this progress. And listen, when we did Dan Corder, it was literally around, it was like just find the nail in the, it was really just a
And then
suggestion.
yeah, so this
of
actually
where
looks
the-
like I put in some kind of effort.
I
so
think
this is
so.
good.
I think so. Okay, let's see.
There we go.
Very nice.
I literally never do color on my nails, so it's hilarious.
Oh,
Yeah.
so cool, lovely. And I was thinking about that as well as I asked you that question. I love, I also love the South African stories, and the one that, one of the ones that was so pivotal for my kids was, and of course it was Refilwe Moahloli, and it's how to say, no, what is it? Hello in 11, so many ways to say hello. That's what it was. And I love that story. And we actually interviewed her on the show. So she was talking about how the influences built to create that kind of content.
Yeah,
So
beautiful.
lovely. And I guess let's talk about motherhood, right?
Yeah.
You and I had a chat outside about school pickup times. We had a very distinct conversation about WhatsApp groups.
This last little like push at the end of the terms when everything gets crammed in, and then you're trying to make it to everything because you don't want to be a bad mom, and yeah, it's wild.
Tell me about that. What's a bad mom?
What is a bad mom? What is a bad mom, and who decides actually? But I think for me, and it's not necessarily just mom, but parent, I think the most important thing is to show up. Just show up. Yeah. And so that's the standard that I've just kept for myself. I'm not going to nail it every single day. Sometimes I'm going to shout. Sometimes I have to apologize. You know, there's certain things that I'm not really great at, and I can acknowledge that and have that conversation with my kids. But it's really important for me to show up for them as much as possible. And so all the silly little things that we all love doing, like Christmas carols and prize givings and everything else that's in between. I think like whenever they've got big feelings, like big things going on in their life, just to be there, be present and listen and hear what they're saying when they're speaking to you, I think is just the most important thing. So yeah, I think if I'm nailing being present and showing up, I don't fall in the category of bad mom.
I love that. But I am still curious about the concept of a bad mom. Do you think a bad mom and a bad dad are the same thing?
Yeah, I think they could be. I think that I think that the expectation set on moms is far bigger than dads. I actually recently saw like a post about, you and I, the first conversation we have is around our kids and the end of year and how we're managing everything. How many WhatsApp groups are you in? You go through the majority of those WhatsApp groups, very few of them are actually the dads, they're all the moms. And so I just find it's not equal. It's not equal footing for moms and dads. But do I think that they can both be bad? Sure. Like I think there's definitely areas that parents are failing in parenting.
Yeah. I was 3 days ago. I'm very happy to say I have found a therapist to see because I really needed this. So let me just tell you, I really needed this. Yeah. And I was lying on.
We all need it. Honestly.
Yeah, no,
we
like
all do.
I really. So I was lying there, sobbing my eyes out, saying I am trying to juggle all the things and not be a bad mom. And so that's kind of why I'm drilling into it today, because he said to me, but what is a bad mom? And I said, well, what if I can't make the sports game at 11 a.m. because I don't know why, but it's at 11 a.m. on a Friday. And he said, well, so what? So I was like, no, but that's a bad mom. And all the moms around, they're going to be like, I wonder where she is. Oh, well, she's doing her big corporate job. And then he said, is it a bad thing to have a corporate job? And I do feel that in some respects it is. As a mom, certainly not as a dad, but as a mom, the excuse doesn't seem to hold. The excuse of I'm in a meeting that I can't get out of doesn't carry the same weight as if you are a dad in that circumstance. I don't know whether you felt anything similar.
I agree to an extent. I just don't care what people think. And I think that is where the shift of freedom happens. So I think like going and considering like if I don't show up, like are all the other moms going to notice? Firstly, I think no, they won't actually notice. And secondly, I think that if they did notice that you weren't there, they would be like, well, we completely understand why she couldn't be, because she's got a job, she's working. And that's actually the majority of the case. I mean, like my kids are super privileged to be able to go to really amazing schools, and not all the parents are working, 9 to 5 jobs every single day and do have a little bit more flexibility, but everybody's super understanding about the fact, like if you can't show up, it's you working. Like, you're working, you've got a job. And I think that is as important for your children to see as you going and being at the gala or at the sports day. I think it's as important for them to see you there and knowing that you also have a job and other commitments that you stick to.
Yeah, honestly, really. I mean, by the way, that's what my therapist said as well. So well done, nailing that.
I've been
But
in
also
therapy for so many years. I could basically be a therapist myself.
Yeah, no, that was really cool. That's where we netted out too, and I think the expectation sits with me, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
So yeah. Let's talk a little bit about adoption. So I know that you and I both have adopted children. Our situations are slightly different. I adopted my children. I don't know their biological parents. I adopted them when they were babies.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the things that I struggle with is being around parents of biological parents who say things like, who are their real parents? I find that a very difficult
Or are they
thing
your
to,
children?
yeah, or when did you get them? Like, they're not, it's not a nail polish. Like, so I find those kinds of questions quite challenging to deal with. What sort of questions do you find a little bit intrusive?
Let's extend a little grace. Like, I think if you don't know, you don't know. And that's why conversations and podcasts like the Colourful Podcast are so important, because there are resources now available to everybody to understand and to know better and to be more conscious of the way that we ask questions and the way that we see things or view things, and what is appropriate and how is it appropriate to ask sorts of things. And I think that the question that really irks me the most is like, are you their nanny or are they yours? And I mean, that's not just for my older two kids, but for my younger two as well, because they're brown. And so it's something that really does frustrate me. And
yeah, okay, so that, and I get that question. I get that question quite a lot.
yeah, and I guess, like, maybe, do you need to know? Is it so important to you to know if I'm a nanny or a mom or whatever? I just think, like, when I'm in a situation like that and I'm curious to know, like, are they her kids, or are they, is that like a mixed family or whatever? It genuinely is out of curiosity and like this, maybe we could connect, like maybe they've got some stories,
Yeah.
But I think that if it just kind of came across and I'm like, oh, those your kids, like the way that you sometimes hear it is not always in the way that it's intended to be asked. And so I think sometimes be curious and maybe just keep it to yourself. I think that's okay too. Do you have to know? And if you do, maybe you could strike up a conversation first and find other ways to ask the question in a way that just doesn't feel as invasive.
Yeah, I actually really love that. I think that's a really nice way of considering it. Here's a question that I haven't necessarily discussed openly before, but something that I've spent a lot of time reflecting on by myself, which is when I chose to adopt children of color, I really needed to consider what identity for them would look like.
Super important.
And of course, right? And of being raised in a white family and as a white person in this country, I've enjoyed all the privileges. And so I really needed to question what it was that I was going to do differently, and whether what I was doing differently would be in their best interests, and how to support them through the fact that it is a more unique situation than not. When did you come to that realization of your privilege and what the role that color plays in your mixed family?
Too late.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you thought about those questions and you thought about your children's identity and their experiences before they kind of were a part of your life.
I didn't.
You didn't?
And that's why when you said too late and you were so honest, I was like, thank you, because that was real. I thought, oh, cute little babies, everybody's going to love them. I didn't.
I really genuinely only started my eyes open to the massive injustice that still exists after I had children. And I remember vividly being in Canal Walk at a watch shop, and I I'm very pro teaching children to be independent from as early age as possible. And I remember one of my older kids, their watch, one of my older kids, their watch had broken. And I had told them to go into a watch store and find out about a new battery and that kind of situation. But I was like, you go, I'll just wait out here. And I had like the whole crew, and the little ones were little. And so I was just waiting out in the corridor, but they walked in, and I remember the staff almost immediately just looked them up and down, like there was a problem, or like they were in there to do something else in the shop. And I was observing from the outside, and I kept watching, because I was like, well, you're going to go and offer help like you have everybody else in the store, or you're going to ask, what they need. But I was just thinking, like, of course they're going to feel uncomfortable to go into a store to ask for help, because that's the experience that they have. And that was one of my first memories of just realizing, yeah, no, this is a problem, and I need to understand it and do better with it. I think the massive shift for me personally happened during Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
I think that the conversations that were happening and the real push for an understanding from white people, I think, was so massive and so in all of our faces that we actually had nowhere. When I say we white people had nowhere to hide from that conversation. And so I really dove into it. Like, I sat with friends, I unpacked, I got resources, I wanted to understand. And I remember just feeling this massive weight of like guilt and like a heaviness that, like, man, you've messed up. Like, man, you should have done better all these years. And I think over the years I've learned to just have grace for myself. And a lot of other people, during Black Lives Matter, I came in hot and heavy, like on social media, with friends, with family, everybody. And I'm like, how can you not support it? Like, how can you not be a part of this? How can you not understand it? And I think in doing so, I chased so many people away from the conversation, where actually people of color have the right to be angry and have the right to be disappointed and to show their anger and to confront it in that manner. It's those of us who have been awakened and are white need to be building the bridges between and be having the conversations about learning and understanding better. And I think that I wish I had done that a lot gentler and been more open to having conversations with people and creating spaces of learning. And in some ways I did a whole online thing with some amazing speakers and created a lot of space and awareness about where to get resources. But I do have some regret about how I kind of went about that whole process. And it's just something that I've learned from, right? Like, sometimes we do things that we wish we had done better, and I've learned from it and try to be more conscious about the way that I approach conversations. And, when you sit around a table and you hear someone say something that you're like, it's a little off, like, that's not the time and place at the table with everybody sitting there. But to pull them aside later and to have the brave conversations, I think, is super important. So, yeah, I think that during COVID, Black Lives Matter movement, that was really the shift for me. And that really did implement and affect the way that I have kind of just been raising my kids, and just become a lot more aware and conscious of their experiences and my role in making sure that they've got a real solid representation of spaces that they can identify and where they feel safe and seen and represented.
Seriously, Rach, there are so many parts in that I want to, that I would love to talk to. But the one thing probably overriding all of it is to say that my journey was very similar, and I feel that same guilt and that same shame. In fact, it deeply affects me. I just wish I had done better, known more, been better. And I went through the same journey of, as soon as I realized, becoming incredibly angry with lots of people. And I did the same thing about driving them away rather than pulling people closer to the conversation. And my standpoint at the time was, yeah, well, you have all these resources. Why are you not engaging with them? But me 2 years ago also had access to all the resources and didn't engage in them. And that's why I couldn't let myself off for that. And I'm still not really going to. I agree with you about have grace for the journey. But I do feel that as white people, we really need to be doing more. And in the face of things like Black Lives Matter, to come back with all lives matter is just so counterintuitive. Exactly. And I think that as white people, we need to invest time in understanding that. And here I can hear Senna talking, she's obviously not here today, but I can hear her say things like, it is not our job as people of color to teach you.
Yeah.
You need to actually get off your butt and do the work. Yeah. And there's no more sitting back. If you want to be a part of this country and if you want to stay here, and in fact, if you want to live in the world, you really need to engage with this kind of content. So
I think, you know what, at the end of the day, love is the whole purpose of life. It's love.
Yeah.
And I think that love sounds nice. Like when you say the word, like it sounds nice. It's got a good like fluffiness to it and whatever. But when you just, I mean, love is a whole podcast on its own. But when you just lift the mat to love, like there's so many layers to loving someone and caring about somebody. And I just think that if we look at it from that mindset of like, I want to love you because I share this country, I share this environment with you as a home. And so I want to understand your experience. I want to understand how I can honor that and how I can respect that journey. And I think that's a really honorable, responsible thing as a human being. And I agree with you. White people 100% need to do better. I think those of us that know better need to be open to be sharing, because when you say like, or when I've said in the past, like there's so many resources, there's so many places, where do you go? That's the thing. And I think that that's why the Colorful podcast is such an important conversation, because this is a resource. I think that there's a lot out there, and so you actually don't know like what is a good resource to read, what is a good resource to listen to, what's a good documentary to watch. I think it's very practical. It's very.
Actually,
I think
you've given me a great idea. We could put some of that kind of stuff out on.
I think it's
as colorful.
I think that like even in other podcasts I've listened to that I'm interested in the resources, they have it in like the write up afterwards. That's really cool, because I just think like people actually are keen and they want to learn and they want to understand. I think it's just like, it's overwhelming to know like, where do we go from here? You know, like, okay, cool. We want to be a part of the conversation. Like, I want to be conscious of what I say, and, oh, that Black person is so well spoken, and, oh, they so your hair looks so neat. Or, you know, people don't actually realize that that's a problem because no one's ever told them or taught them. And so I think that just being brave and being able to have those conversations and sharing resources, I think is so incredible already. But I think the majority of people genuinely, I believe, the majority of people want to understand and want to do better.
Yeah, I think so too. And just you were telling me the story of when you sort of had that stark realization with the watch shop. I had the realization when we were at the airport and we were running late, and I ran with the children, so it was all fine.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine said afterwards, you need to teach them that they can't run in airports when you're not there.
Sure.
And I thought, I actually had the audacity to ask why. She was like, but they're a Black person running through an airport. They're not allowed to do that. They will be stopped. And it really hit me that they were safe just because I was there, not as their mother, but as the white person in control of that situation. You know, it was really, So, I love this conversation. That is actually not what I had planned on chatting about in this particular moment, and I'm so glad we did. Do you know what else I want to come to is a topic that I know is very close to your heart, and that is women. Women in corporate, women in workspaces, women in the home, and what it looks like to be a woman in all of those spaces. Tell me your thoughts.
I really feel that society has created a completely unrealistic expectation on women. You are expected to be a great wife, a great mom, have a great friendship group, be social regularly, look a certain way, act a certain way, be in therapy, have a great career. And then I think at times, and I like from my year especially, just you experience something that's really hard. I recently, and I like to support like small and local brands as much as possible. And I went to pick up some tracksuits that I bought for myself and my daughter from Being a Woman. And the owner has just gone through the most horrific breast cancer experience. But I'm like, society has this expectation that you're all of those amazing things. And then you've still got to be able to manage like an absolute devastation that lands sometimes, and more times than not, eventually in our life, there's some massive shift or change that happens in our lives, and we're expected to manage that a certain way. And I have never felt more on fire for creating space for women to just be in whatever state, shape, or form that is, to just be. But I do believe that there's a massive lack in conversation for women, and especially in South Africa. And I think that the gender-based violence statistics, which are not hidden from any of us, tell a story already of the disrespect and the inequality that women are experiencing in South Africa specifically, across the world, of course, but in South Africa specifically, I think there's a massive conversation to be had. And, you know, we recently had this amazing movement of turning South Africa purple and a shutdown, and it was awesome. But what happens after that? You know, we all do that for a day. What next? Where do we go to next? Who's leading that charge? And bottom line is, I think that there's too many men in powerful positions that get to dictate how and where women are placed and what their experience is in that placement and in that role. So I personally believe that there needs to be more female leaders across sectors, not just in South Africa, but across the globe. I think that the world as a whole would be in a far better state if we had more women in leadership positions, and leadership positions where they're actually allowed to lead. I think is really important. So yeah, I think in South Africa specifically, I don't think that conversation is being led. And I have been quite vulnerable and open up in sharing my journey, and just in this year what I have experienced, and the amount of injustice,
yeah.
and the amount of injustice that I've experienced this year has just been insane to me. And I just think it would be irresponsible of me not to take that conversation further.
We've watched parts of that journey, and I know you are very respectful in terms of what you share, for the sake of your family and for your own, I would imagine, mental health. The injustice that you speak to is absolute. And look, let me tell you this. So in my professional career, I spend a lot of time with big brands in South Africa. And since this far-right wave of exclusion has swept the world, a lot of the regulations that were put on South Africa, and, well, should I say local markets for global brands, a lot of those regulations have become more of a suggestion than an actual you have to do this. And one of the worst examples that I saw was of this recently. I'm obviously not going to share the brand, but it's an international brand that we all consume. And they recently reshuffled their executive, and there are not only no women on it, but no people of color. So they have an entire executive that is white men. They've literally just chucked the whole lot and shown their true colors. And I was absolutely, I just couldn't believe it. I thought, we are literally recreating a system that supports sameness. We're saying that this is what good looks like. This is who needs to run our brands. This is who needs to run our country. We're saying it over and over. And the systemic inequality of both being women and then certainly of being a person of color in our country is just so real. And so yes, I completely agree. And the gender-based violence, it requires the people who sit with the privilege to be assisting with the change, not to sit back and just, I agree. Like, we need men to stand up in those forums. We need people. We need white people to stand up in their spaces and in their forums to advocate for for the marginalized in that systemic equation.
100%.
Yeah.
And there's too many people talking and not enough people doing anything about it.
I agree. I really agree. I mean, again, what surprised and hurt me was how few companies, global companies, supported the shutdown that was around the gender-based violence, the campaign for that Women for Change were running.
Yeah.
There were so few that actively told their staff to go and take that day to lie down in support and to not work at that time. It was this sort of very generic mail that went out that said, do what you got to do, but don't do it in the name of our brand.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? What are we saying? We're saying we don't really care. We're saying it's fine. Everything's fine.
And I think as a corporate, I think there's a huge opportunity there. Like, maybe your staff didn't take the day off, but maybe there's another conversation or something else that you could be implementing. You could hire a gender-based violence organization to come and do a workshop in your workspace. You could make sure that there's resources around your office, just that all the females, especially that are working in your space and for your company and for the success of your brand, to make sure that they're equipped and they feel safe and knowledgeable. The amount of times that I have conversations with women that don't know, and myself included, I had a situation of abuse in my family directly recently, and I've worked in gender-based violence fields and spaces for 5 years, very closely. I didn't have one number saved on my phone for when there was a situation that I was directly involved in. So I had to phone one of those organizations straight away. And of course, they were incredibly helpful. But it was just a very enlightening moment for me. And almost immediately, I was like, everyone needs to save these numbers on your phone because it's always closer than what you think it is. But I think that was a real opportunity for corporates to kind of have a conversation and to create a space where women feel like they're at least safe, like their bodies at least are safe. And so it's super disappointing to find out that not everybody took it on board. And
it's actually super disappointing how few did. I'm talking about the global brands. I saw a lot of local support, and that was beautiful. Local brands in our country. And I guess, and just to wrap up that other conversation, was to say we're not going to be advocating for the systemic gender-based inequality if our executives are all white males, unless you've got some real allies in that space. But without the lived experience, it makes it very difficult. So
and I'm pretty sure there's some interesting statistics and data and research that's coming out about companies and corporates that have chosen to have some executive change at the top, about women that are leading companies and how they're managing to almost do a whole entire whirlwind up there. And so I think just go and look at the data and the research and give an opportunity where it's due.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I heard that you have a tattoo.
I have two.
You have two?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I know of one.
Yeah.
I know of one. I don't know of the second one. I don't know if I should ask or not. Look, I've got a tattoo.
Tell me
It's
which
over
one
here
you know
on my
about.
foot. I know about the one on
My
somewhere
back.
here that says something about like pick yourself up.
Definitely
you
would
know?
never get a
Well,
tattoo on my
somewhere should I
boobs.
say? No, not on your boot. You're absolutely right. It was. I think it's maybe here or here. But it was something about like picking yourself up or facing challenges, something along those lines.
Yeah, it's I've got a Hebrew tattoo on my back.
Oh, it's on your back.
It's
Wow,
on my
I got all the
back.
details wrong. Hey,
Yeah,
what
so
sources am I
It
consulting?
was close. But I wanted it over my heart. I did not want it over my heart, over my boob.
I got it.
So I wanted it over my heart. I wanted it in Hebrew because that was the language that Jesus spoke when he was on earth. And I wanted something that I kind of had carried me through to that point. I think I was 21 when I got it. And something that I believed would carry me through going forward. And this too shall pass is what it means.
Oh, lovely.
And I've spoken about it tons, and I really just feel like in life there's really beautiful moments that we celebrate and some of us choose to live in. But I think a lot of us are kind of just running through everything the whole time, just can't wait for the end of this week, can't wait for Friday, can't wait for the term to end, can't wait for, we're constantly looking forward to the next thing. And are we actually just taking a moment to just celebrate and like realize that even the good moments are going to pass. And so if you're not really present in them, they're going to go. And so this too shall pass really reminds me to remain present in beautiful moments. And then, of course, I think it's self-explanatory in the trenches and in the really hard seasons, just one day at a time, and realizing that you will get through it. It will pass. It will pass eventually. Just, yeah.
Oh, we literally said that when we were outside in different words. We said, because we were talking about term time and how many activities there are, and we're like, well, we have to get through it. That is just what it is that we have to. So, okay, your second tattoo?
Oh, my second tattoo. Much to my kids' very much dismayed about this tattoo. I have a little pistol on my hip.
Ah.
Yeah. There's a longer story that I might share one day that I haven't really brought to public light yet, but basically it was a reminder to protect myself. And I had been hurt by somebody. I had been hurt, and it was just I got it as a reminder. So
yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I got mine. It's a lion.
Yeah.
And I got it because my sister got it and I wanted to be like her. And now we're trying to get my third sister to get it, and she's like, there is no way I'm doing it. And we've literally got it on the same part of our foot, and we're like, come on, you're like the odd one out now. And she's like, nah, you guys go do your thing. But
Stunning.
I know, it's cute, hey?
Why did you get a lion?
So my maiden name, I'm now divorced, as you know, but my maiden name was Leo. And I also, on top of that, love lionesses. I love how they work in a pride.
Yeah.
I love how they move so gracefully with such speed. I love how they're bold. I feel like they're like colorful in their red color, and yet they're just blending in, and they're doing it so well. So I love lionesses.
Beautiful.
And
Protective.
yeah, exactly, protective. And they do the work, right? They are the ones doing the work, and I just
love that.
Yeah,
So nice.
yeah. Okay, so let's fast forward to like 10 years from now, right? With your bear in mind like all the different entrepreneurial ventures that you do, and the philanthropy work that you do. What do you want to be able to say that you've achieved in the next, say, 10 years?
I think I'm just starting, and I just want to make this clear, like everything I might say, please don't hold me to this, that in 10 years time, if I'm not doing exactly all these things, you're like, but you said you were going to do exactly. I'm literally starting what feels like all over again in so many different spaces. And it is so scary. It is so intimidating. It's so annoying because it's Saturday mornings taking the kids to a play park or just something where they can play so you can work. And it's late nights so that when the kids come home from school, you're doing dinner with them, bath time, homework, all of the fun things, maybe watch a little bit of a series, but you're present with them. And as soon as they've gone to bed, I'm back at work. And it's all of these, like, it's really challenging to start again. Like, it really is challenging. It is, I believe, massively rewarding because I've done it so many times in my life. I'm like, okay, let's go again. Let's do it again. But it's hard. It is hard. And I think this is the first time that I've had to do it so alone.
Yeah.
So alone. And then being with the kids 99% of the time by myself as well. Just, it's hard. I think in that it makes me more motivated. There's no way that I could be doing something now that isn't full of purpose and full of impact to justify the amount of hyperextending I feel like I'm having to do to make sure I'm meeting deadlines, to making sure I'm getting stuff out there, to making sure that what I'm doing is going to have an impact and is going to be helpful for specifically women. I just couldn't do that if it wasn't filled with purpose and intention. So I think in 10 years from now, my big vision and dream would be that there are many women at this moment. I'm like, if there is one, if there is one woman that can say, because Rachel was brave and Rachel chose to share some of the challenges in the journey, I felt that I was able to use my voice and have a space where I felt safe to share my journey and my experience, and I can be brave too. Right now, I feel like if there's one, that's enough. In 10 years, I hope there's far more than one. So I think the hope and the dream is just, I'm very conscious of the fact that the majority of South African women don't have access and can't afford necessarily to have access to the creme de la creme of what a lot of sometimes global and international people and professionals have to offer on a journey that is challenging and hard. And how do we do life well as women? And so I would love to be able to bring those expertise and resources to women at a point and at a way that they're able to access it and it's affordable, that it doesn't always feel so out of reach. And so I hope that in 10 years, there's thousands of women that say, because Rachel chose not to give up, and I don't know why I'm getting emotional about it, but like, because Rachel chose not to give up and she chose not to stay in bed when she desperately wanted to or wrapped around on the floor. That there's thousands of women in the future that say like, thank you. And it's because of you that I am where I am today. And I'm only saying that because there's been women before me that have been brave and have chosen to speak up and speak out. And so that's, it's a journey I'm on.
I've seen your socials. And I've seen that there are a lot of women who are deeply encouraged by the bravery.
Well, I was gonna. I'm happy with brevity.
I was like brevity. That's the wrong word entirely. I've seen that, and you know what else I've also seen is in the midst of some pretty controversial and obvious behavior. I love how poised and respectful and calm you've been. Not that you had to be, I'm not saying that is what is expected in that moment, but that's what I've seen from the outside. Yeah. And so I know that you are already doing that. And I really do believe, because I've seen people share your posts and say, I'm behind this woman. And what I'm seeing is you are already creating this situation where women, whether they know you or not, are like, I'm there for my lady. Like, I'm here for this woman, and we're doing this together. And there is this movement that I'm feeling that you are a part of, but there is this broader movement around women saying, it's enough now, and we're doing this, and we're going to run companies that offer leave for things that people would never have thought should have leave, like PMS days, or dare we speak about the luteal phase and how we feel, and that we're actually entitled to feel a little bit shit without having to pretend that we're not, so these kinds of things, I'm seeing it all over the show, and I'm seeing it in your pages, and I'm seeing how women support one another. And I think you've already started that. In fact, you're pretty far on. And so I don't think that we'll be sitting here in 10 years' time and I'll look back on this interview and be like, oh, look, Rach, you didn't actually do it. You didn't do the things you said you were going to do. I really think you're there. You're already doing it.
Thank you. I hope so. And I appreciate you saying that, because that's something that has popped up a lot is, oh, you've been so graceful. You've been so graceful. And sometimes sometimes I want to scream. Sometimes I desperately want to scream. And there's places that I do. Like there's spaces that I absolutely do. when this journey for me started, my number one priority has been my children and what they're exposed to. And my job as a mom is to protect my children. Show up for them, number one, and protect them. And so no matter what I'm processing, I'm dealing with, the priority is my children. And so all of my actions, if that's what I say the priority is, all of my actions have to match that as well. And does it make it easy? Hell no.
Well, it makes it a lot harder because you're in the trenches.
Yes.
Like, you're right in there. And, but Rach, like, this too will pass, you know? This is the thing about it. And
it passes. I just think that that's guaranteed. It is going to pass.
Yeah.
It's just how do I want to be left when it does pass? What do I want to offer the world? What do I want to offer myself, my family? And I think that it is going to pass, and you have to be intentional in the journey. And that's part of like what I'm going to be speaking about a lot. Like, hold yourself. Like, I hear and I know life is hard, like for women. I know that. And no one can tell me anything different after the year that I've been through. And I've chosen to be responsible with that. I've chosen to be really intentional about my therapy, about my exercising, about how I show up in the world on a daily basis. And it's not at all to say that I show up every day and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to nail this day. I'm doing all the things. Like, I think I've shown that it has been very challenging, but I've held very close to me the responsibility that I have, not just to myself and to my children, but on a public scale as well. I take that responsibility very seriously. I don't just skip over that part. And so I think that not just we as women, we as human beings, what is your responsibility in the world? Like, what do you owe yourself, your family, you know, the environments that you walk into on a daily basis? And I mean, that can be any one of the things that we've spoken about today. But I really just think that we as human beings need to start being and taking a little more seriously how we show up in the world and how we show up for ourselves. And that's just something that this year specifically I've been very intentional about. And so I want to take people on this journey of like, I know it's hard. Like, I know. And there's ways that you can do it that you land up being the best version of yourself at the end of this. Like, you don't need to tell me about the days where you literally don't want to get out of bed. You don't need to tell me about the days that you don't want to live. Like, you don't want to be here anymore. You don't need to tell me about those days because I know. But I'm so interested in who am I if I do this really well? And so that's my number one priority. And I just think like there's just too many women that are scraping through and struggling through life. And so there's a season to mourn and to grieve certain things. And in that season, are there areas where you can be intentional? Are there areas you can push yourself a little bit more? You're uncomfortable already, but what does a little bit more uncomfortable look like? And I think that what gets released at the end of that is, good luck to the world or whoever did wrong to you. Because
I love it. That's when we show up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just think like women need to see that and believe that and trust that could be their journey too, if they take responsibility and if they're mindful of kind of how they're going through the trenches. I think it could be beautiful at the end.
I love it. And I want to end with a little kind of thought around the fact that so I was so lucky. I got to do a values-based workshop with Terry Crews, you know, the actor.
Oh my gosh, yes, I saw you.
Yeah, did you see it on my post? I
cool.
can't even believe it. But he said something that was so amazing. He said, one day, spend some time thinking about your 3 values, your 3 non-negotiables, and use them to make all your decisions. So when you're talking about being purposeful in your spaces, apply those 3, because then you'll know that what you're doing fulfills the person you are becoming. And he says if they fall outside of that, then don't give them your attention, because you've got limited capacity, obviously. And I thought that was really helpful. And so I spent the whole plane ride back from Germany thinking, what what are my 3 values? And it's not easy, let me tell you, because there I was, honesty, transparency, like I'm going through all these things, loving, kind, I'm all these things. And it's actually quite an exercise in self-reflection, and a really cool way to approach your spaces.
I love that. Like, what are your 3 non-negotiables? Like, what keeps pulling you back? And honestly, this year has been one of the most incredible things for me, is putting boundaries in place and actually just accepting the fact that, like, you know what? It's not worth my energy. Like, if something is not adding value in this season, I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't have capacity to give or do or offer more. I'm like, this is what I've got capacity for. And just actually being able to communicate that in the first place has just been so empowering and so beautiful. So I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you have to turn down really big things that you think are what your life was meant for and what you were supposed to be doing. You got to walk away from it to start something completely new and put your energy in a completely different space. And man, it's scary as heck, but
it is, hey? And that's where it happens.
Beautiful journey, but incredible.
Oh, Rachel, thank you for joining today.
Thank you.
I really deeply loved this conversation.
Me too.
So thank you.
No, thank you so much for having me. And just in awe of the incredible work you guys are doing. And hope it just goes further and wider, honestly.
Oh, I appreciate you.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, guys, can I end this with a like, subscribe, please? We are trying to build our YouTube channel. So I really, because you know what? People look at YouTube and they're like, oh, look, you've only got this many subscribers. You can't be big. But our Spotify is really big, but nobody sees that. So we're really trying to grow our YouTube channel.
I'm not even on Spotify, so that doesn't help us.
No, I don't need you to be on Spotify. I need you to follow us on YouTube.
Got it.
Exactly. Till next time, guys. And thank you for joining us for a really cool conversation.
Thank you so much.